Flying High, written by Jen Green. Hot air balloons. For thousands of years, people dreamt of flying. Hot air balloons were the first flying machines. In 1783, two French brothers built a large balloon from cloth and paper. It rose into the sky when a small fire heated the air inside it. The first balloon flight carried a sheep, a duck, and a cockerel. Later, that same year, two Frenchmen took a balloon ride over the city of Paris. Hot air balloons are still flown today. In 1999, this hot air balloon flew around the world without stopping. The warm air, which is heated inside the balloon, rises above the cold air outside it. First powered flight. Balloons fly because they are lighter than air. In the 19th century, people also learnt to build gliders, light planes that could float on warm air currents. But no one had yet built a plane that was heavier than a glider and could still fly. Then, in 1903, two American inventors called the Wright brothers fitted a petrol engine to a glider. The engine drove two propellers that pushed the plane forward. The plane lifted off from a windy beach and stayed in the air for 12 seconds. Orville and Wilbur Wright. The first flight by the Wright brothers' plane. Across seas and oceans. The Wright brothers were soon making longer flights over land, but no one had dared to fly across a sea or ocean. Then, in 1909, a brave Frenchman flew across the English Channel in his own aircraft, a distance of 32 kilometres. He took off from France and landed in England. His plane flew very low over the water, but luckily the sea was calm that day. Frenchman Louis Berlot was the first to fly across the English Channel. Pilots now dreamt of flying right across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1927, an American pilot called Charles Lindbergh flew all the way from New York to Paris alone, a total distance of 5,633 kilometres. Charles Lindbergh and his plane, the Spirit of St. Louis. Airships. By the 1930s, large airships were carrying passengers on long journeys. People travelled in a cabin that hung below a giant balloon. Unlike hot air balloons, airships were filled with a gas called hydrogen. This gas is much lighter than air, but it also catches fire easily. Balloon, cabin. A huge German airship flew passengers between Europe and America. But in 1937 it caught fire and 35 people died. After this disaster, people decided that airships weren't safe. The German airship was 3 times the size of a jumbo jet. Passenger planes. In 1919, the first passenger plane carried people between London and Paris. This was the start of a new age of air travel. People were soon travelling across Europe, America and Australia by air. In the 1930s, flying boats carried people across the oceans. These planes had floats and could land on water. The first planes were made of wood, but plane makers were soon using metal, which was stronger. The float holds the plane up on the surface of the water. In the 1950s, jet planes were invented. These planes were much faster, which made journey times shorter. Air travel became very popular, and today millions of people travel by air. People boarding a plane at a busy airport. Warplanes. Planes have been used for war since the early days of flying. During the First World War, British and a German airmen tried to shoot one another down using machine guns. These mid-air battles were called dogfights. During the Second World War, planes called bombers carried bombs to drop on enemy targets. Fighter planes took off to defend their country against air attack. First World War dogfight. Some modern warplanes look very strange. They are a special shape so they can fly over enemy territory without being spotted by radar. Helicopters. Helicopters were invented in the 1930s. They can fly straight up and down, forwards, sideways, or even backwards. Spinning overhead blades called rotors keep the machine in the air. The pilot tilts the blades to steer. A small tail rotor keeps the aircraft steady. This is what helicopters looked like in the 1930s. Helicopters can take off and land from a small space, such as the top of a building. They can also hover. These things make helicopters very useful. They are used to rescue people from the sea or mountains. Police use them to check on traffic, and they also fly soldiers into war. A modern helicopter carrying out a rescue at sea. Faster than sound. Sound travels incredibly fast. taking only 3 seconds to cover 1 kilometre. For years, people thought no plane could travel this fast. Then, in 1947, an American plane flew faster than the speed of sound. This is called flying supersonic. The plane made a loud boom as it flew faster than sound, which is known as breaking the sound barrier. The X-1 was the first plane to fly supersonic. Planes were soon flying even faster. In the 1980s, the supersonic jet Concorde flew passengers across the Atlantic at twice the speed of sound. Concorde's slim shape and pointed nose slipped easily through the air. Future of flight. Planes have come a long way since the first flight over 100 years ago. Plane makers are now building planes that are lighter and use less fuel. The shape of the wings has recently changed on some planes. These plane wings look like birds' wings. In the future, planes may fly higher and faster, and passenger planes will probably get bigger. Some planes, like this one, may even visit space. Very small flying machines, called drones, may be used to deliver parcels to your door. Planes of the future will also use other forms of energy, such as solar energy from the sun. Solar planes are fitted with panels that use sunlight's energy to drive the propellers. This solar plane made its first test flight in 2009. In 2013, it flew right across the USA. The next step is to fly right around the world without stopping. Solar plane. Solar panels.